Okay, today's conversation is about the future of enterprise 5G applications. And to do this, I am joined by Tom Loozen, who is the global telecommunications leader at EY. Welcome, Tom.
Hi, Bernard. Nice to be here.
It's so nice to have you with us. Where are you joining us from today?
Today, in the world famous Bossenduin, no, that's actually a small place close to Amsterdam from the Netherlands.
Very good, very good. Maybe we can start by you giving us a quick overview of your background and how you became the global telco lead for EY.
Sure. Yeah, no, pleasure. Actually, Bernard, if you think about it, I think I'm now by 2022, 30 years active in the telco industry. So
Wow.
I started off working with the Dutch leading telco KPN for 7 years, and I switched to another professional services organization where I led technology media telco for them in the Netherlands. Later on, was part of their global leadership team for tech media and telecom, and I had the honor to be directly client responsible for one of the largest telcos on the globe. Switched to EY about 3 years ago. Reason really being that I felt that telco industry and being successful in the telco industry requires quite a different approach than I would say optimizing and improving what you already do. I think today, and we'll probably discuss it a little bit. To be successful, to flourish, it's really about what are the services that you're stepping into, what are the markets in which you'll compete, how do you compete, and I felt that EY is very strong in that space, being able to reimagine how you could work as a company, being able to then with a very broad portfolio support our clients to get there. So that is in a nutshell sort of the background and my role today at EY.
Very good. So what does your role involve nowadays? What do you do with your day?
Yeah, in simple terms, EY provides four kind of services, right? They provide assurance, they provide strategy and transaction support, provide tax and legal services, and then business and technology consulting services. All those services that they provide to telco companies, you could say it's my responsibility that we provide the right services and we provide them in the right way. If you have to break down the typical focus areas for myself, on the one hand, of course, it's building brand and reputation and having a perspective on the future of the telco industry. Second part is a little bit more focused on making sure that what we know, the methodologies we have, the approaches we have, the at times software assets that we have, that they are really accelerating and sort of sophisticating the approaches that we take. So that's an important part. And thirdly, it's making sure that all this intelligence and good reputation then works in terms of having the right client conversations. So that's on the one hand myself being engaged with those client conversations, but it's also building the community and making sure that the community acts with the wisdom of EY and the telco industry, with other than maybe the wisdom of the sole person. So yeah, that's what I focus on and what's keeping me busy, Bernard.
Very good. So EY have just launched a new study
Yeah.
reimagining industry futures, I believe, for which you surveyed over 1,000 enterprises on their attitudes towards emerging technology. And there was a specific focus on 5G and IoT. And the findings indicate that businesses are prioritizing 5G applications that drive real world benefits now, rather than futuristic use cases. What is driving this, and where are you seeing businesses focus their 5G investment today?
Yeah, so I think if you think about it, by 2019, Korea had already rolled out a complete, national covering a 5G network, which is 3 years ago now. And so what you see happening is that whereas in the sort of approach to those national rollouts, already companies were trialing 5G. They trialed on all kind of solutions. I think in the last 3 years we've really come to a place where using 5G as a technology to improve yourself as a company is no longer a discussion point, and people have found where they can actually use it to produce with better quality, produce faster, produce potentially at lower cost. And so what we see that especially in the place of you know uh, uh, tracking how manufacturing processes work, tracking how assets flow, tracking logistics over different locations, over different countries. Maybe not the most sophisticated, so you will kind of solutions. Another example is remote healthcare and being able to do that also over the mobile for making it easier for people than maybe having to go on a laptop. It's relatively, you could say, simple applications, but very much applications that give you a direct benefit in terms of saving money, being able to do things more efficient, or in the example of healthcare, making sure that suddenly you expand the reach of your services. And we feel that that's now where companies benefit from applying the technology, and that's where they apply it.
Okay, so when we look at 5G technology, why are people wanting to use it? What are some of the key benefits then of 5G technology?
I think there is, well, there's like three sort of main characteristics that are attractive, right? There is the much more speed, then there is the lower latency, so the immediate response between you doing something or the device doing something, that being picked up by the network, and you getting a response, and then of course there's the ability to connect, up to 1 million, but by now already more than 1 million different things per square kilometer to 5G. The first one, the speed, is clearly one, for example, in the healthcare example, which is accepted, and also in the consumer space, being able to play a game on your mobile phone is something which is being widely used. I think the second one is really the IoT characteristic. So being able to connect many devices to it. Now you could argue, well, you could already do that with previous technologies, which is all true, but there is a big advantage is being able to have one and the same network, to integrate against, having the responsibility for that network, the SLAs, whether it's on the speed or it's on, how all these devices are being able to connect to one and the same network. I think the benefit is really to have that as one network, and then also having that as one implementation is something which we see is really helpful. Maybe the final point there to make, Bernard, is that also, private network solutions are increasingly, gaining popularity, because that sort of provides the benefits that I was just speaking about. But then in addition, the level of security becomes controllable when you sort of, set that up behind your firewall. It allows you to really manage and tune it in the way that you'd like it to work for your company.
So you were talking about the fact that Korea started to roll this out a few years ago. So and we're now catching up, I guess, in Europe and the US. Do you feel that this technology has finally come of age?
Yeah, I would say so. It has come of age. There are still these little burps here and there, like in the United States recently, where with the aviation controls, there was some difficulty in progressing it. There's still some debate in some countries where should there be spectrum available for enterprises, but also in the last 2 years, auctions have been taking place, and I think it's really moving forward. And as I said, I think few minutes ago, by now almost all enterprises that we spoke to said, yeah, this is a technology we should be using. We're either investing already now at scale, or we're going to do that in the next 3 years. I think we're at maybe 1 in 5 saying, not sure I will invest in the next 3 years. So that means 80% is convinced they should leverage this technology. It's there, people know how to use it for their benefit.
So, and what I found surprising in the report is that it says that some of the European countries are now leading on 5G adoption, whereas countries in Asia, in the Middle East, are where the intentions are actually falling at the moment. So, do you think there's a problem around confidence with 5G?
Yeah, so here we go a little bit to interpretations, Bernard. I think, our analysis or our hypothesis on this is a bit more that if you look at China, if you look at Korea, the actual number of 5G connections are up to 40% of the total connections.
Mm,
So, whereas that's very different score if you go to some of the European countries. So to us,
yeah.
it feels a bit more like, that's now just accepted. The nationwide rollouts have taken place. 40% of the connections are 5G, and slowly but surely you see them already start to eye on, okay, how would 6G look like for us? And I think the mind shift is going on there a little bit more, whilst in Europe, we're still a little bit in the, let's say, catch-up phase, I would say.
Mm. So, what future trends do you envisage for 5G use cases then? Will more advanced applications start to emerge across industries?
Yeah, I think what the research also is telling us that for sure there will be really a big expansion on the let's say more down to earth direct benefit use cases, which has to do with tracking, with has to do with controlling, has to do with helping robotics function in a better way. We do still expect also that the virtual reality, augmented reality, building digital twins, the advantages of that are also really clear, but it's a bit more difficult to implement. It's a bit more, I would say, bigger investment and returns maybe a bit further out. We would expect that those will come to life also in the next 2 to 3 years for sure.
So, are there any specific industries where you see the greatest possibilities for 5G? I mean, the areas where I see a lot of interest is around agricultural businesses, around healthcare. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I think you're right. Healthcare, for sure. I think also probably driven by the consequences of the pandemic. The idea of doing things remotely, whether that is patient to doctor or whether it's actually doctor to doctor assistant, surely is something which we see happening. I think in the agriculture, and we also hit a little bit, I think, on the point of what's the contribution of 5G to sustainability and to environmental goals, and it becomes increasingly clear that doing smart agriculture, knowing how the crops are doing, how much water and nutrition they would need, and then very specifically addressing it, um, is has become a theme, I think, where people would say, yeah, that's a good thing to do, of course, because of the ability to get to better profits, but also to contribute to a better planet. So I think those two definitely important. I think the other one is that manufacturing, smart manufacturing, and again, two benefits. On the one hand, if you do it well, more profits, but on the other hand, also the environmental impact, which should be much lower if you can go to precision manufacturing. So I think those are sort of the three which, yeah, do look like front runners.
And do you have any favorite examples and practical examples of companies actually using this technology on the ground and getting some benefits from it?
Yeah, I think maybe to come back to the agricultural one, right? The opportunity now and the application of saying, okay, we go with a video camera over the crops and pick up all the signals in the live streaming whilst the big tractor is going over it with a speed of 40, 50 kilometers per hour. Getting that to an edge cloud server, processing it on the spot video recognition, and then steering back, what should be the feeds in terms of water, nutrition, pesticides. I think that's the kind of example which can only be done with this technology, right? Picking up the broadband signal, having the low latency communication to that edge cloud server where that, smart software is. So I think that's a great way of, doing things in a different way, more profitable, and also much more environmental healthy, I would say.
Yeah, that's a great example. Do you have another example maybe from healthcare?
I think in the healthcare, what we see happening is this whole idea of saying, we get, the best kind of healthcare service, surgery being guided by either, augmented reality or being guided, as we've seen a few examples, by, somebody else very remotely, but being able to provide assistance on the spot. I think that is something which is super promising. Also, the haptic kind of applications where you feel basically through pressures and other things where to go to. I think that is spectacular. No, that brings, well, basically the best healthcare surgery possible from one place to the whole globe. And so again, maybe double a double perspective. On the one hand, a better way to do it, and on the other hand, something directly contributing to the greater good of society.
Absolutely. You mentioned augmented reality, virtual reality as one of the technologies that could benefit from 5G, because we then have the opportunity of having completely untethered glasses, for example, and which I guess brings us to the metaverse as well to some extent. Do you feel that 5G has a contribution to make in making the metaverse work, and what's your overall view of the metaverse and where we are with all of this?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, Bernard. Look, on the metaverse, maybe in terms of definition, on the one hand, you can look at it as, okay, you should have the glasses on, and it's really a 3D virtual reality immersive experience, right? The maybe slightly less ambitious definition would be, being in a space, mind with your mind, which is not the physical space happening when you look at your mobile phone. Suddenly you get into sort of a digital world where you see things happening, although it's still 2D, or I mean, two-dimensional. And so what I see happening, I guess what we all see happening, is that the percentage of time that you spend in the digital world versus in the physical world, and again, doesn't necessarily need to be with goggles on, but could be, just being in a digital world, that time is definitely going up. I think with 5G and being able to create a three-dimensional world, that world becomes even more attractive. And so I think the amount of hours that you will be spending in that world is going to increase. Is 5G important? Yes. If we don't have the 5G speed, the attractiveness of what you see in front of you will probably remain two-dimensional, will therefore remain a little bit more limited. And there are certain things like famous examples, of course, of trying out clothes. That becomes a much easier if you're in a 3D world than when you're in a 2D world. So I think 5G, with the speed, with the low latency, with the ability to create this virtual reality, is a very important one. It allows you also to do that everywhere, not just sitting behind your desk. And will we go towards that metaverse-like world? I think I answered that a little bit in the start of it. Yes, for sure, we will be increasingly spending time in this digital world, and to also an increasing intent, it will be 3D instead of 2D.
Very
But
good.
but Bernard, on that one, we did a little bit of research, right? Today, I think there is like 12 million of those, virtual reality headsets, and most of them actually unused. There is almost 2 billion smartphones. So I know of the doubling effect, and it could go fast, but there is probably some way still to go in this space.
Yeah, I completely agree. One of the things you mentioned was 6G, the next evolution. I work with a number of companies working in this space, trying to develop the next iteration of mobile technology. So, do you have any views on when we might see the next wave of evolution, and what they might include other than what we have today with better latency, better speed, and better security?
Yeah, I think so. Difficult to predict when we actually will get to sort of commercial stage. For me, I think that's at least probably 5, 6 years out. I think the whole idea of being immersive, right? So whereas of today, it's your ears and your eyes who sort of do get tingled when we interact in a digital way. I would expect that also movement, sensing, all that becomes part of it, and that of course requires you to, well, be in that 3D world. It probably requires, instead of having 1 million devices that you can connect per square kilometer. Probably we need a multifold of that in order to be at that granular level. Some of the thoughts I have on this, Bernard, but I think we're pretty busy working with our clients to see how they can benefit from 5G, and I expect that to be the focus in the next 2-3 years to go.
Absolutely, I agree. Your study also found that 71% of enterprises are interested in buying 5G through an intermediary rather than directly from a telco. And only 19% thought that telcos are actually digital transformation experts. So does this credibility gap threaten the future of telcos? And what do they need to do about that?
Yeah, so I think in some sense it does threaten it, right? Because if you buy your connectivity as part of a bigger solution from somebody else, uh, typically business school rules would tell us that that drives prices down because you're not at the table, you're more of a commodity supporting another one, and that doesn't allow you for much price differentiation or price premium. So that's not a good thing. Also, if you look at sort of the value chain, right, application, software, devices, connectivity, storage, um, connectivity, 5 to 10% of the total. So if there's an aspiration to grow the business, then the logical thing would be to design the solution, help implement the solution, do some of the software. So the fact that indeed 71% is actually looking at others to provide that connectivity, and then maybe as a part of their solution, having the telco infrastructure in there is not a good thing. Look, I think the way we look at it is that there's different options for telcos. One is to say, okay, this is my area where I play, it's infrastructure, and I'm going to be fully focusing on infrastructure, going to make it really cost effective, highly automated, and probably multi-tenant in places where I can, because that's how I make money. And that's not necessarily a bad business. There's a lot of infrastructure companies arising, and they're doing pretty well. The other one, you could say, sits much more at the other end, where you are the provider of end-to-end solutions, where you do work with the enterprises to say, hey, how do you benefit from this 5G? Bring the software, bring the hardware devices, and create the end-to-end solution. Bigger market to tap into, probably also more of competition in there. But I think the important point is for telcos to sort of choose um, where do they want to play, and once they have made that decision, really then also organize themselves to have the right capabilities. As an infrastructure player, there is still good money to be made. I think where it becomes difficult, if you're sort of a bit of both, and maybe on the one hand are a bit, have too many people, have an operating model focused on doing the end-to-end client conversations and deals, whilst in fact what you're doing is much more should require a leaner operating model and a leaner way of organizing.
Very good. So at Mobile World Congress, EY's main focus will be around businesses, including telcos, and how they can overcome some of the challenges you've just mentioned, and how it is important to work as part of a powerful cross-industry ecosystem to make this all happen. So can you maybe elaborate a little more on that?
Yes, for sure, Bernard. No, so look, as in my introduction, I've been working in the telco industry for 30 years now. I was fascinated when I started about, let's say, the force for good that telcos are, right, bringing together people, enabling social life. I felt that was an important thing, and telco industry has basically given me as a person, as an individual, a lot. I think also, if you look at telcos and how they behave during the whole pandemic, but I would say behave in general, right? They step up to the challenge. They make sure that things keep working. They try and deal in a very conscious and compliant way with data, very trustworthy. So really, I think custodians of a good a digital society. So in that sense, I'd love for telcos to flourish. I think it's my heritage, but also I think it's good for society. And so when we speak about the ecosystem, it's really to this option of saying how can telcos be more of the end-to-end solution provider, so be in that spectrum, which would allow them to grow. I think enterprises are interested in that. Yes, 71% said I could take it from another. It also very much depends on sort of the market segment. I think with small, medium enterprises, many of them are now going into cloud and connectivity, and the bigger enterprise, and they may be actually the ones who really like to work with a telco. So how we going into MWC is sort of focused on how can telcos take that end-to-end solution role. For that, they need to work with these system integrators, need to work with the software companies, need to work with the hardware companies. We happen to know them. We have an idea on how that cooperation could work successfully, and yeah, we'd love to engage with them and have the conversation.
Very good. So maybe we can finish off with looking at your hopes for the future of the telecom industry. Do you have any hopes or any predictions about the future?
Yeah, Bernard, I would love for them to, really be flourishing in that role of end-to-end solution provider. That means going also into private enterprise networks. It means in having these partnerships set up with software companies, hardware companies, having that, client-facing role in designing with them how 5G and edge cloud and IoT will make them better companies. If that doesn't appear to be the right choice for telcos, there is other options. We spoke about the infrastructure option, and also that is a way to flourish. So we're there to basically have conversations and see what would be the right sort of strategic horizon for the clients that we speak to, and well, we'd love to work with them and see how they can be as successful as can be.
Very good. Thank you so much, Tom, for your time today.
Pleasure, Bernard.